This is my audience. I don't think it's seeing y'all. Can you guys say hi?
Hi.
Okay. In 1951, a middle-class, 30-year-old African-American mother of 5 was diagnosed with cervical cancer at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland. Her doctors had aggressively treated her condition, but unfortunately, she did not win her battle with cancer and died just 8 months after her diagnosis. Even though that woman passed over 60 years ago, parts of her still live on today. Not just in the memory of her descendants, but in the literal sense as well. No longer is she known just as Henrietta Lacks, but simply Hela. Back then, doctors were trying to keep cells alive in cultures or outside of the body in order to do research to develop drugs and vaccines. But all the cells that they had collected up to that point did not survive in the cultures. Henrietta's cells were different. Not only did her cells survive outside of her body, but they developed at such a rapid rate that they eventually became immortal, revolutionizing the course of medicine. I've spent the past 2 weeks researching and compiling information so that I can come to you today to talk about Henrietta Lacks' contribution to modern medicine. Henrietta Lacks' cells, also known as Hela cells, have contributed to the advancement of modern medicine by improving cell culture practices, leading to the development of drugs for various diseases and exposing issues in bioethics. Her first contribution that I will talk about led to the development of cell culture practices. Henrietta Lacks' line of cells were the first cells ever successfully used in cell cultures. Scientists had spent decades collecting cell samples from patients in hopes of creating a successful cell line. During that time, more than 15,000 women were dying each year due to cervical cancer. Researchers were adamant to start a successful line of cell cultures in order to study what caused cancer and hopefully develop a cure for it. According to Rebecca Skloot's book, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, if you could take all of the Hela cells ever grown and put them onto a scale, they would weigh more than 50 million metric tons. The second contribution of Hela cells led to the development of a number of drugs used to treat and cure many diseases. Hela cells have played a major role in just about any medical research or treatment development that you can think of. The field of virology, tissue culture, cloning technology, testing on the effects of drugs, hormones, and vitamins are just a few of the things that were further developed, if not started, with Hela cells. They were also used to develop a vaccine that eradicated the polio virus in 1953. Her cells were also part of research into genes that cause and suppress cancer. According to Joel Potash's article found on upstate.edu, Hela cells have led to the discovery of HPV-18, which is a gene that causes cervical cancer, diagnostic tests for hepatitis, and advances in vitro fertilization and gene mapping. Her cells have even been launched into outer space to study how zero gravity affects human cells. Her final contribution that I will discuss was how her cells shed light on the many issues of bioethics in the 50s and then those that's still in question today. There were many ethical questions raised regarding the rights of the Lacks family. Henrietta's children and other relatives went more than 20 years before ever being made aware that their mother's cells were being used for medical research and also being profited off of. Henrietta nor her family ever received any form of compensation from the millions of dollars earned in medical research and publications using her cells. According to Andrea McDaniel's article on BaltimoreSuns.com, the Lacks family finally reached a settlement with the National Institute of Health in 2013. Under this agreement, scientists had been granted permission from the NIH before they could use Hela cells in any research projects. They could also no longer publish the full genome of Hela cells online or in any papers to protect the family's privacy. This was an issue because making Henrietta's full genome public, her family could be identified in connection to those cells, violating their right to privacy. 2 family members were appointed to the board that made the decisions on who could and could not have access to her cells. Informed consent was another issue. Unfortunately, much of the work done, not only on Ms. Lacks, but other patients involved in research projects using her cells, were not informed of their role in the research and therefore did not give their consent. While undergoing cancer treatment, Henrietta's doctor took cell samples from her cervix without her knowledge. In 1954 to 1956, a researcher named Chester Southam injected dozens of patients and prisoners with cancerous HeLa cells to test his theory on what caused cancer. None of those patients were told that they were being injected with someone else's cancerous cells. Cases like these, among others, has led to informed consent laws and HIPAA privacy regulations to protect patient rights. In this speech, I have shared how Henrietta Lacks' cells have furthered the advancement of modern medicine in 3 areas: cell culture practices, the development of drugs and medical research, and shedding light on issues of bioethics. I hope you all have enjoyed learning about this amazing woman as much as I have, and thank you for your time.